The U.S. Navy fired over 5 million shells into Vietnam from offshore batteries, more than the entire Pacific naval campaign in World War II. Not from carriers. From battleships, cruisers, and destroyers conducting fire support missions 24 hours a day. This is every warship class that actually fought, from blue water bombardment to brown water river combat. U.S. Navy aircraft carriers. Aircraft carriers form the backbone of American power in Vietnam, operating primarily from the Gulf of Tonkin. These ships launched the majority of U.S. strike missions against North Vietnam, South Vietnam, and surrounding regions. Carriers allowed sustained air operations without relying on vulnerable land bases, giving the United States strategic flexibility throughout the war. Their flight decks became floating airfields that maintained constant pressure on enemy infrastructure, supply routes, and troop concentrations. USS New Jersey, BB-62. The Vietnam War marked the last combat deployment of an American battleship. USS New Jersey was recommissioned to deliver massive naval gunfire along the Vietnamese coast. Its heavy guns provided devastating shore bombardment against hardened targets that aircraft could not easily destroy. The ship's presence demonstrated how even aging naval platforms could be adapted to modern conflicts when firepower and endurance were required. Guided missile and gun cruisers. U.S. cruisers served as command ships, air defense platforms, and gunfire support vessels. They coordinated carrier air operations while also protecting fleets from aerial threats. Their versatility allowed them to bridge the gap between strategic command and direct battlefield influence. In Vietnam, cruisers proved that control of the sea also meant control of information, coordination, and protection. Fleet destroyers. Destroyers were the most active surface combatants of the war. They escorted carriers, conducted naval gunfire missions, and enforced coastal surveillance. These ships operated dangerously close to shore, firing in support of ground troops and interdicting enemy supply movements. Destroyers embodied the daily grind of naval warfare in Vietnam, where endurance and adaptability mattered more than prestige. Frigates. Frigates. DEF. Smaller than destroyers, frigates were essential for patrol, escort, and coastal interdiction duties. They operated extensively during Operation Market Time, cutting off seaborne supply routes. Their shallow draft and endurance made them ideal for sustained coastal operations. Frigates showed how lower-profile warships could have an outsized strategic impact in irregular warfare. LPH amphibious assault ships. Helicopter assault ships transformed amphibious warfare in Vietnam. Rather than relying solely on beach landings, these ships projected Marines inland by air. They enabled rapid troop deployment, casualty evacuation, and logistical support in terrain where roads barely existed. Amphibious assault ships reflected the shift toward mobility and flexibility in modern warfare. LST, LSD, and LPD classes. Traditional amphibious ships remained vital throughout the war. They delivered troops, vehicles, and supplies directly to contested coastlines and river mouths. These vessels sustained long campaigns by keeping ground forces supplied under difficult conditions. Their role was less visible, but absolutely essential to prolonged operations. Patrol boat, river, PBR. The Mekong Delta turned rivers into front lines. PBRs were designed for shallow waters, conducting patrols, ambushes, and troop insertions. These boats brought naval warfare into villages, canals, and rice paddies. Riverine forces blurred the line between land and sea combat, redefining naval engagement zones. Patrol craft fast, PCF. Swift boats were high-speed coastal patrol vessels used to interdict enemy supply traffic. They operated close to shore, often under constant threat. Their missions were dangerous, repetitive, and strategically critical. Swift boats symbolized the intensity of small unit naval combat in Vietnam. U.S. Coast Guard warships. Coast Guard cutters played a combat role rarely acknowledged. Integrated into Navy operations, they enforced coastal blockades and conducted search and interdiction missions. Their professionalism and endurance were instrumental in reducing enemy resupply by sea. Vietnam demonstrated that maritime security and warfare often overlap completely. U.S. Navy submarines. Although less visible, submarines operated in intelligence gathering and special missions. They monitored enemy communications and naval activity. Their presence added a hidden layer of control beneath the surface. Submarines reinforced the idea that dominance at sea includes what cannot be seen: minesweepers and mine countermeasure vessels. Naval mines became a critical factor in the later stages of the Vietnam War, especially during the U.S. effort to restrict North Vietnamese maritime movement. American minesweepers were deployed to detect, clear, and counter naval mines laid in coastal waters and harbors. These ships operated under constant risk, often working slowly and deliberately in contested zones. Mine warfare demonstrated that control of the sea was not just about firepower, but about denying the enemy freedom of movement without direct confrontation. Special warfare support craft and converted vessels. Several U.S. Navy ships were modified or assigned specifically to support special operations forces during the conflict. These vessels transported Navy SEALs, reconnaissance teams, and intelligence units along coastlines and river systems. Operating quietly and often at night, they enabled raids, surveillance, and interdiction missions that conventional warships could not perform. Their presence reflected the increasingly covert and intelligence-driven nature of naval warfare in Vietnam. Combat logistics ships. Although not frontline combatants, certain logistics ships operated directly within combat zones and under threat. These vessels replenished carriers, destroyers, and patrol forces at sea, allowing uninterrupted naval operations. Without underway replenishment, sustained naval pressure in Vietnam would have been impossible. These ships turned endurance into a weapon, enabling the U.S. Navy to maintain one of the longest continuous maritime campaigns in modern history. U.S. Navy hospital ships. Hospital ships played a critical but often overlooked role in the Vietnam War. Positioned offshore, they received wounded personnel, evacuated directly from combat zones by helicopter and small craft. These ships provided advanced surgical care within hours of injury, dramatically improving survival rates. Their presence changed battlefield medicine, making rapid evacuation and maritime medical support a defining feature of modern warfare. Fleet command ships. Dedicated command ships served as floating headquarters for naval and joint operations. From these vessels, senior commanders coordinated carrier strikes, coastal patrols, amphibious operations, and riverine warfare. Equipped with extensive communication systems, they allowed real-time coordination across air, land, and sea. In a war defined by complexity and geographic fragmentation, command ships ensured that dispersed naval forces operated as a single, unified system. American naval power in Vietnam was not defined by a single ship or class, but by an interconnected system operating from deep ocean to shallow rivers. Each vessel type filled a specific role shaped by geography and political constraints. The war forced the U.S. Navy to fight simultaneously as a blue water force, a coastal security service, and a river patrol fleet. This complexity tested doctrines built for conventional wars. Vietnam reshaped American naval thinking, proving that technological superiority alone was not enough without adaptability. Warships, designed for global conflict, found themselves fighting village-level battles. In the end, the Vietnam War stands as one of the most demanding naval campaigns in U.S. history, not because of scale, but because of how completely the sea became inseparable from the land.